Ladies and gentlemen, Jackie Wells.
Hey teams, I have a preem video for you to end 2021. Every single piece of genuine news on Cyberpunk 2077 and CD Projekt Red from this year. All the lore, development insights, controversy, hopes, corpo BS, everything you need to become an NC legend. I often see feedback from my viewers that they don't receive notifications or my content does not appear in their subscription feeds. So give the algorithm a middle finger, and if you did miss something this year, it's all here in one video just for you.
So I've heard, but I'd like it proved to me as well.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, there is a conversation apparently containing thoughts of an alleged CDPR dev speaking about the game. Is there any authenticity to this conversation? More than likely, it's all nonsense. But given you have now experienced Night City for yourselves, who exactly can you trust? Either way, it's an interesting topic of conversation. So let us cover the main points. CDPR devs are hearing plans of a No Man's Sky style comeback in June. The first two patches should come out mid-March, despite what's being said by top execs. There will be major departures from the studio in the coming months. The directors and senior devs are taking the flak for the team in an honourable move. Just so you know, we still joke about a quest that got rewritten more than a dozen times because a certain top dog wasn't feeling it. It ended up being cut from the final product and should come in later DLC. If you want a refund, please ask for it. It positively impacts us as devs because we've warned the leads a million times about such excrement. Most cosmetic overhauls should be ready by the second update. That cut content so people finish the main quest talk was all excrement. Most apartments with locked indications used to be lootable. We've scrapped 50,000 lines of dialogue. I don't want to hate on Keanu, but F hell, our original Johnny was way cooler and sounded like a maniac. I think full test on crack. I don't appreciate his acting either, but he's a very nice man. Walked up to us personally to greet us on the first day and took time to personally thank us one by one when we wrapped up recording. The word is his fee was actually manageable and the need for a star talent came from outside CDPR. There was a whole AI routine with minor gang violence in those areas. Stuff you could sit back and watch unfold or directly influence. There was a lot of drug use with kids that eventually got cut due to inside censorship. Miles wrote a side quest where a max tac officer offed himself and you could take its place, but it created such a complex detour from everything tonally that it got cut as well. We've scrapped 2 whole arcs because the mission cleaned a save due to a bug with character placement. We've also scrapped a big portion of the underground and sewers because of bugs. Night City had 3 different types of cab besides Villafort, and drivers would hold whole conversations and give quests. That was scrapped. Morgan Blackhand's backstory and a nod to the corporate wars. The DLCs will add a lot to the crazy and cool ideas Mike gave us when we began briefing the project. You should have a complete game by the end of 2021. Feel free to comment what you feel about this, but as I said, it might well be excrement. Cannot deny there was a lot of cut content or significant changes. For example, there is actually a male version of the Judy Alvarez romance, which is hidden in the game files.
I didn't want to tell you. Wanted this to be just our day. I wanted.
It is ours.
Oh shit!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CD Projekt Red, via their co-founder, Marcin Iwiński, issued an explanation as to what happened with the game including plans for future updates and DLC. The first update will be coming in around 10 days' time. Understandably, the free DLC will be delayed until fixes are made to the game. I will show you what Marcin has said, so feel free to provide your thoughts in the comment section. After everything that has transpired, do you trust CDPR to deliver the goods?
Hey everyone, my name is Marcin Iwiński and I'm the co-founder of PROJEKT. When I started PROJEKT 25 years ago, one of its founding principles was honest and direct communication with gamers. When PROJEKT Red, the game development part of PROJEKT, was born, it added something important to that principle, the ambition to make the best games in the world. It became our mission and something that guided us up until now. Based on that legacy of genuine and honest communication, you've trusted us and pre-ordered our game. And despite good reviews on PC, the console version of Cyberpunk 2077 did not meet the quality standard we wanted it to meet. I and the entire leadership team are deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up to that. Please don't fault any of our teams for what happened. They all are incredibly talented and hardworking. Myself and the board are the final decision makers, and it was our call to release the game. Although, believe me, we never ever intended for anything like this to happen. I assure you that we'll do our best to regain your trust. Now I'd like to tell you how the situation looked like from the inside. Cyberpunk 2077 is huge in scope, and I'm not only talking about quests or things you see at first glance. I'm talking about a multitude of custom objects, interacting systems and mechanics. In the game, everything is not stretched out over flat terrain where we can make things less taxing hardware-wise, but condensed in one big city and in a relatively loading-free environment. On its own, this is a challenge, but we made it even more difficult for ourselves by wanting to make the game look epic on PCs and then adjusting it to consoles, especially old gens. That was our core assumption, and things did not look super difficult at first. We knew the hardware gap, yes, but ultimately, I think that time has proven that we've underestimated the task. To give a concrete example, and the main culprit, we had to constantly improve our in-game streaming system for all-gen consoles. Streaming is responsible for feeding the engine with what you see on screen, as well as the game mechanics. And since the city is so packed and the disk bandwidth of all gens is what it is, it constantly challenged us. Every change and improvement needed to be tested, and as it turned out, our testing did not show a big part of the issues you experience while playing the game. As we got closer to the final release, we saw significant improvements each and every day, and we really believed we would deliver in the final Day Zero update. Now let's talk about the review process. We started sending our PC review keys in the first days of December. On launch day, December 10th, we hit the ground running with a really good start on PC. While not perfect, it's a version of Cyberpunk we are very proud of. At the same time, we're fighting for quality on all-gen consoles till the very last moment. And every extra day of us working on the Day Zero update brought visible improvement. This is why we started sending console review keys on the 8th of December, which was later than we originally planned. This all happened while working from home with all the challenges resulting from the COVID-related restrictions. A lot of the dynamics we normally take for granted got lost over video calls or email, and we took that hit too. Now I'd like to tell you about our plans for the future and present a path for Cyberpunk 2077 on consoles and PC. We have already released 3 hotfixes improving the game, but that's just the beginning. Our ultimate goal is to fix the bugs and crashes gamers are experiencing across platforms. Please expect bigger and smaller patches on a regular basis. The first update will be dropping within 10 days, and it will be followed by another, more significant one in the following weeks. We will, of course, continue to work on the game in future updates and improvements beyond that. Our big plans for supporting Cyberpunk in the long term did not change. As for the free DLCs, our initial plan was to deliver them just after the release, much like we did with The Witcher 3. We decided to focus on the most important fixes and updates first, and we'll be releasing the DLCs afterwards. Expect more information in the upcoming months. For those of you playing on next-gen consoles in back compatibility, you can still expect the free next-gen update for Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5 arriving in 2021. We are aiming at the second half of the year. I'd like to end this video by assuring you that we treat this entire situation very seriously and are working hard to make it right. The guiding principles of our company are still core to what we do. We still want to make amazing games and have an open communication with you, our players. For now, our immediate focus is to work hard on making sure you enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 regardless of platform.
You'll be kicking up a shitstorm.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Bloomberg journalist Jason Schreier released one hell of a hit piece on CDPR. Unlike various pathological liars who consistently misrepresent Cyberpunk 2077 and CDPR, Jason, whether you like him or not, actually has credibility and several contacts in Night City. That does not necessarily mean the article is accurate by any means, but neither can it just be dismissed. The Bloomberg article claims to have had interviews with more than 20 current and former PROJEKT staff, who allege that the development process was marred by unchecked ambition, poor planning, and technical shortcomings. Jason states in relation to the E3 demo from 2018, fans and journalists were wowed by Cyberpunk 2077's ambition and scale. What they didn't know was that the demo was almost entirely fake. PROJEKT hadn't yet finalized and coded the underlying gameplay systems, which is why so many features such as car ambushes were missing from the final product. Now, this is a point worth exploring further, because Jason neglects to mention that CDPR had several demos, including a version at Gamescom with a male V, which played out differently. If the E3 demo was fake, as Jason alleges, why bother making multiple versions? Secondly, CDPR initially had no intention of releasing that gameplay to the wider public. Of course, one cannot dismiss the contrast between what was shown in that gameplay footage and what you see in the released version of the game, but implying that the entire thing was a fake is a serious allegation. No doubt this fake demo quote will generate a cornucopia of clickbait headlines, but for the most part, the article provides no new evidence. Despite alleging to have had interviews with more than 20 CDPR devs, and adds nothing new to the conversation. Where are all the quotes or some specific information one would expect from interviewing so many individuals? Jason would continue with the crunch narrative on social media, also stating that co-workers used Polish in front of non-Polish devs, making them feel ostracized and causing some to quit. Again, this probably sounds far more egregious than it actually is. I speak Polish and English, and generally when I deal with a Polish dev in person, we communicate via Ponglish, which is basically mixing Polish and English together. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Quite a few former and current CDPR employees watch my content, so if you ever want to reach out to me and would like to contribute your own personal take to the news in a confidential manner, feel free to contact me.
You do good work. Use this to wake Night City up.
Hey everyone, my name is Marcin Iwiński and I'm the co-founder of PROJEKT.
You need fresh wheels?
Beyond
Bikes?
Cyberpunk, we
I
have
got
many
it
plans
all.
for the future,
Real good
which we'll
prices.
share more
So
about
hit me
with
up
you.
anytime, you hear?
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.
Hey Tunes, CDPR Corpos have now released full details for patch 1.2. There is a tremendous amount of bug fixes for gameplay, cinematics, environment, graphics, audio, UI, performance, and so on. I will leave a link to the notes in the comment section. As far as I can tell, there is no new content, so to speak. Thank you for chipping in. In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, PROJEKT confirmed that they are not working on releasing their next game as a standalone online experience. As previously implied, given they started working on the online components 2 years ago. The focus now is on enhancing the single player element with online experiences. It was also confirmed that there will be free DLC, while full expansions, similar to Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone, will be paid. Netrunner Prickly Assassin, who previously released some deets, now claims additional names were added, including Neck Deep. Seems like the rookie is slowly gaining some street cred.
Could have figured.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, we have another Pan Am update from Netrunner STNDN, with additional romance dialogue. Similar to previous updates, these are new to patch 1.2, but currently do not seem to appear within the game. Aldecaldos Forever tunes. In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CD Projekt Corpus answered a variety of questions on the future of Cyberpunk 2077, including online elements and DLC.
This year we are going to release 3 DLCs, providing small bonus content for gamers. Additionally, in the second part of the year, we are planning to release a dedicated next-gen edition of Cyberpunk 2077. Owners of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One copies of the game are going to receive a free next-gen update.
Patches we release should also lead us to coming back to the Sony storefront, and that's something we are looking very much forward to. Secondly, we also announced 3 DLCs for gamers, and that's something we have in our pipeline for this year. Cyberpunk Next Gen Edition for the second half of this year, so I believe should also have a significant influence on sales and atmosphere about Cyberpunk, if I can name it this way.
There will be, of course, expansions and so on will be such events as well. More good quality content to play with, and this is something we're very keen on delivering in the months and actually years to come.
So in terms of online, well, we are not revealing the details of our plan. We just said that instead of releasing big online game at once, we decided to, in terms of big teams and big budgets, to focus on single players, but at the same time we continue working on multiplayer and to release it step by step as online elements to our single players, and to learn from each element. So in a cycle, of course, ultimately it will take more time, but we believe it's less risky way for us, considering that we should still push more on single players to prove ourselves again. There are teams working on the next Cyberpunk content, and there is fairly small for now team working on the next thing, and there is some works related to multiplayer are implemented in single player as well. So it's kind of blended on the edge. But the team working on multiplayer is fairly not too big, but they'll continue working on things they have been working for over 2 years.
Definitely planning a bigger marketing campaign for the launch of CP 2077 for next gens. It is a launch after all. However, if the question implied whether this is a campaign of a similar scale and size of what we had at the end of the 2020, then the answer is no. I mean, that campaign was also focusing, you have to remember, was focusing on establishing the brand, and that goal has been achieved. So this will be more focusing on informing the players about the fact that the game is launching on the next gen.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Netrunner, Prickly Assassin, continues to leak deets on alleged DLC found via Epic Games Store. There appears to be no new information here, rather it could be interpreted as adding credence to what was released previously. To celebrate Lover's Day, CDPR Corpos are running a poll and, wait a second, Judy isn't winning. Swiftly moving on, Pavel Sasko revealed where he gets his inspiration from for 2077 quests.
Oh, God damn it!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Pavel Sasko provided some interesting deets, including info on Morgan Blackhand, a hint that not all the main players in Night City have been revealed yet, as well as some insights into what happened with the game.
Was there any reason we didn't see much established characters from 2020 beyond Johnny, Rogue, Blackhand only got mentioned, and so on, Jackie and Claire? There was a bunch of reasons, actually. When we were creating and working on a game, we didn't really want to only took the characters from 2020. One of the reasons was because the characters in 2020, in 77, they were all 70, 80 years old, right? So because of that decision, we would have to introduce a cast that was very, very old or kind of old. And at the same time, we wanted to provide the players with a good variety of characters. And using this, we also looked at the cast of the characters that were in 2020, and we tried to find okay, who would actually fit, the best when it comes to the needs that we have from the story perspective, right? And that's why some characters ended up in the game and some didn't, right? Like, we decided some to only mention, and some of those we picked to actually use them, right? So it was always just a matter of a decision of, okay, how well we can adjust them, how we can show the transition also from 2020 to 77, what actually happened to that characters, how that characters changed, and so on. So that was our thing, I would say few important players, and we also didn't have show all the cards yet, right? What happened, that the company that did The Witcher did Cyberpunk and so on. I'm like, well, I mean, what happened was we have reached for new IP. We have tried to learn as much as we can. We have tried to really, our goals have been super ambitious, and I don't really feel that the players and journalists fully, completely understand how difficult it was to make this game. I don't really feel, and I'm not saying that you guys should be giving us more credit for it, because you should demand a fully functional, well done game, and that's your right. The thing what I'm talking about is more of an acknowledgement, that was a very difficult game to make, a very ambitious one, and we have tried to pull off as much as we could on all the fronts. And I think that a lot of them we have done it, and a lot of them we still need to improve. And I think that you will see it, you are already seeing it in the patches that we are moving towards the direction and improving.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, we now have hotfix 1.22. This increases overall performance of the game and addresses several issues since the previous patch. There is no new content. Thank you for chipping in. In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Jason Schreier returned with another expose on CDPR, describing Cyberpunk 2077 as the biggest flop of 2020, while drawing attention to the 28 million Eddie bonuses the board shall be receiving. In contrast, those corpos who worked on the game will be paid via kibble. Just another day in Night City tunes. Thank you for chipping in. In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, lead quest designer Pavel Sasko commented on the topic of choice, implying that many missed the subtle options within the game. Furthermore, Pavel says that CDPR are closely watching feedback and will continue to keep learning.
I've seen people missing out so many things, right? I tweeted, I remember in January when I said just people didn't discover all the paths, because I was because I'm just watching the Let's Plays, reviews and so on, and people point out some things that are not in the game, that are in the game, that are even some things that I did myself, and I'm that's just that's completely not true. And I know basically because the game is so complex and has so many different things, but that it's simply not possible for you to sometimes know everything. So what we have done in Cyberpunk, we have a lot of the choices and consequences are very subtle. A lot of them are small, and a lot of them are actually there, but they are not very much in your face. It's not that the game comes in and tells you, hey, this is a result because you have done this or that before, and that's the thing, and so on. No creator ever thinks I'm gonna fuck it up. That's the plan. This is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna screw it up, that's my plan. Nobody thinks like this, right? We are, most of the people that did Cyberpunk did The Witcher 3. And, and we are still here, right? We built that game, we made it, so it's just us, making choices. And, and I think it's a fair criticism to say maybe some of those choices haven't been correct, But still, some of you love the story, love the characters, love the quests. So it cannot be that we have made only bad choices, right? Because I don't think we would have meet here and discuss and talk about those topics if you wouldn't like the game.
His own Chumba shot him.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Pavel Sasko revealed interesting details covering how CDPR are aware of some of the spicy fan content on the game. Pavel also commented on the dissonance between fan expectations and what CDPR have fixed so far.
We are aware there's a whole, I think, Tumblr, like a, with the, for like Takemura fans and so on, when people are posting like Takemura porn, Takemura, like, not safe for war pictures, safe for work, not safe for war, safe for work pictures, and all that stuff. Guys, it's not a minimap issue. Believe me, it's not a UI issue. It's not. The issue is way more complex, and I don't want to go more into detail, but just imagine, if you would zoom out the map, what will happen? You have to load way much more into the memory, correct? Right. So do you understand why it's not so obvious to do and fix and change? It is a very, very complex change. A very complex one. So we are aware of it, and if it would be easy, believe me, it would have been fixed a long time ago. That's the reality, Like, because it's not that, like, sometimes when you guys are seeing us, like, fixing things and not fixing things, it's not that we are not doing it because we don't know about it, or we are, like, I don't know, lazy, and we don't want to. It's not. It's just, like, things underneath are so much more complicated than they seem. And I understand that players may not know this, because this is understandable. You guys are not devs, right? So it's absolutely fine for you not to know and just ask. And it's okay. That's why I'm answering. It is a bit more complicated to get this fixed.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Corpos on Twitter asked their community what was their favourite quote from the game. The winner, by quite a margin, was...
What the fuck?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Paweł Sasko addressed several questions surrounding the game, covering topics such as AI and why the Flathead did not receive additional options. Paweł also dropped a subtle hint implying that there is a canonical ending where V lives, which might provide insight into where future content might take us.
We were doing the first prototypes for Flathead, and we had like a extremely like super crappy prototype when we were like taking over Flathead and walking for a bit, and it didn't feel right. Like it felt pretty bad. Like player was just confused, you were like walking on walls, you didn't know where you are, you didn't see everything, like it completely didn't work. So like extremely early we were like, okay, no, this is a wrong direction completely. Hey, why the AI is like so stupid, right? It's the easiest work to make the AI extremely clever. And the way, because AI knows where you are. AI can flank you. AI can do lots of different things. The problem is that this makes it extremely unfair. It makes it extremely difficult. So what you're actually trying to do, you're not trying to make the AI smart. You're trying to make AI behave like a person that makes mistake and misjudges things. If you stay with Panam, this is basically the version in a way that we have intentionally like envisioned to be of that flavor, but it was our conscious decision not to do anything more. Do you have a canonical ending in the studio? It's a very good question. I would prefer not to answer it yet, not to reveal anything. Not to reveal anything.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Filip Weber and Paweł Sasko covered a variety of topics, with a focus on Takemura, including the recent change to his eyes and that Takemura started off as a female called Ayumi. Furthermore, in the original promotion material for the game, 3 individuals appeared in a combat cab. These are actually the Arasaka assassins that go after Takemura and V.
We always used to have a character early on in the game who used to be called Ayumi Gozen, and she actually was a villain. But then we actually tried to move this character into this new corporate storyline because we essentially said we want to show a more human side of Arasaka. Takemura doesn't like technology. He doesn't actually like getting calls. And as an example, I know why that is and how it informs his character based on his past. And I never tell that to the players. I never tell them, what went on in Takemura's life in Japan or, what obligations he has there. But the fact that we know and can use it to inform his character, makes him act like a real human. Because, every action he does in the game actually has some sort of, reason that informs it. Takemura was supposed to have very, specific cyber eyes that are very unique to him. Because, of course, as the bodyguard of Saburo Arasaka, he is his own very custom, unique Arasaka cyberware. And even though it's being, turned off, it still exists. So we also wanted to show that with details like his eyes. Problem was, something didn't work out with, time-wise with these eyes. So at release, the kind of eyes that Takemura had were actually the same eyes that Hanako Arasaka has. But of course, we kind of still wanted to show that, they're very different. Hanako, isn't using combat cyberware. Hanako's eye cyberware would probably be more connected to net running. Because if you know Cyberpunk 2020, Hanako is actually quite good at net running. She's actually one of the best in the world.
Exactly.
So that was actually why we also wanted to make Takemura's eyes more unique, to actually show this difference, that he doesn't have the same cyberware that Hanako Arasaka would have.
In the latest news, Holly Bennett has announced she is leaving CD Projekt Red. Holly was head of communication for the UK. You might remember her as the host of the Night City Wire. In my opinion, this is terrible news for CDPR because Holly was one of the best working there and a cool person. I know some extremely toxic individuals working at CDPR, so seeing the departure of good people like Holly is disappointing. There are many things I cannot comment on, but I will say this: it's not looking good for CDPR. In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Corpos covered a variety of topics, including DLC, expansions, and the PS Store. More Corpos speak or hope for Night City.
Definitely, there are teams preparing future unannounced projects. I would say that 1/3 of the Cyberpunk team or AAA content team is working on unannounced things, but it's not like we are in parallel AAA development. It's rather preparation for future works, not development per se.
The size of the team involved in updating Cyberpunk is slowly decreasing, and also the research costs I mentioned in my part of the presentation should also be smaller in the second quarter. This is a natural process, and that's what we expect.
Of course, it's going to be improvement on sales when we're back on the PlayStation, because the sales are currently none, because we're just not in the store. So when we get back there, I'm assuming there will be some sales, of course. When it comes to marketing support of coming back to the PlayStation, I would not really expect when that happens, if that happens, and it's announced, we would probably run some sort of information campaign that a game is available, but that's pretty much it. Nothing bombastic, so to say. Expansions, when we were talking expansions, what we meant was something similar to Blood and Wine or Hearts of Stone, so the bigger expansions for The Witcher. So these expansions for Cyberpunk would be definitely paid. They would not be for free.
On Cyberpunk, there are still around 300 people, and in terms of churn, the year after release is a natural year of higher churn. So we don't see anything unexpected or surprising. Our patches, some are larger, some are smaller. We used to call smaller one hotfixes. It wasn't very fortunate because the nature of hotfixes is different, the natural nature. So from now on, any update will be called patch, and if there will be any hotfixes, so fixes needed after the patch is deployed, then we'll call them hotfixes. And in terms of number, I don't want to announce things which are not announced yet. We were prepared just to say that the next patch, not the biggest one, rather smaller, will be launched in the next couple of weeks. It's it's almost ready. But of course, we are working on the future patches. The first series of patches were mostly focused on low-level technical areas. Not only, of course, we are fixing glitches and bugs as well, but we're focused on stability, performance, and so on. And because those things were, to our opinion, the most important. And then we'll be more and more into improving things without promising anything. But the course of action will change a bit. So we'll be more focused on pushing the perceived quality further.
What the fuck?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, info on the game is now leaking all over the net. It currently consists of memes and bloopers the devs put together, including surprising NSFW content involving chickens. There is also pre-alpha footage showing a completely different game in third person from 2013. NC legend Maximum Mike has broken his silence to issue a challenge to all Pan Am simps. Mike is quoted as saying, "Stay away from Pan Am, because she's mine, you hear? Mine."
To her boobs.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, it appears that the first shots in a potential fifth corporate war have been fired at CDPR. An investor from Abrai Advisors with a substantial stake in CD Projekt has written to the board expressing utter dismay and disbelief with developments at the company over the last 12 months. An Abrai corpo stated that, "I don't think you could have intentionally tried to make so many mistakes as these guys have made." CD Projekt have reinstated the management team responsible for Cyberpunk 2077, and Abrai's response was, "This is the last straw."
What the fuck?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, netrunners are releasing more leaks. This time it appears someone at CDPR allegedly used Winnie the Pooh to mark censorship flags in relation to China within the source code. CDPR were keen to expand within the Chinese market, so this is a potentially interesting development. In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR corpos have announced that the game will be returning to the PlayStation Store on June 21st. Sony did issue a warning that users will continue to experience performance issues with the PS4, and therefore recommends the PS5 version.
Fuck!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR corpos have released patch 1.23, which was promised for June. It fixes a variety of issues, but as far as I'm aware, there is no new content. I will leave a link to the notes in the comment section.
Come on, seriously?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, the game has now officially returned to the PlayStation Store. However, CDPR corpos were forced to state the users may continue to experience some performance issues with the PS4 edition. Paweł Sasko returned to action, providing insights into a variety of interesting topics. Most notably, he mentioned that it was originally planned for Judy and V to have a fire truck quest. However, it was decided that Pyramid Song would be the better option. Paweł addressed the conspiracy theory that the game was significantly changed to accommodate Keanu Reeves. He explained why Cyberpunk 2077 has not matched Witcher 3 in terms of DLC within the 6-month period, and the reason behind the lack of bikes in Night City.
Tinkering with a version, okay, maybe it should be like this, that Judy has her fire truck, and you and basically you fix that fire truck with her, and you like drive that fire truck and you get busted on the way. So that is one of the reasons why she mentions it, because basically like, okay, kind of like we were like iterating that version of a story, we reached a conclusion, okay, that probably doesn't really work that well, or simply we had a better idea. For what would work better for the game, you know, with the Pyramid Song that a lot of people really like. And I think like at the end of the day, Pyramid Song is probably a better quest than the one about the fire truck. But both Sarah and Magda really loved the idea about the fire truck, and that's why it's mentioned here, and that's why Judy has a tattoo about it. Like, sure, it is a way that when you add a certain actor and an actor who's as unique as Keanu Reeves, it of course impacts the characters and so on, but it didn't change the storyline. So I just like I don't really think that that theory has anything to do with reality, really. Like, I've been working on this game from very beginning, and I really didn't see any moment when like addition of Keanu would have impacted the storyline itself. Yes, it might have impacted like certain lines that he says, but that's a super normal thing, and it's not about like Keanu himself, but also just any actor, you know. Like sometimes you just like see, hey, you know, like let's say Judy or like whoever else works better, you know, saying those, oh, Claire calls us, this certain lines or that lines, but it's not that we were changing storyline for it. We spent way more time on patching and fixing and polishing things in Cyberpunk, like things that in The Witcher we would have left it. In Cyberpunk we keep on correcting and fixing. And when you guys looked at the patch notes, like, do you remember the patch 1.2, right? It has like 500 something changes on the list. That was like a fracture what we actually improved in that game underneath, but you don't know it because you don't see it. And yeah, I can basically tell you how it looks inside. We spent way more time on supporting Cyberpunk than we ever did on The Witcher. And I think you are going to see it in time. You know, it's also like, you guys bring sometimes this example of like, you know, 6 months passed, there wasn't like any DLCs and so on. Yes, it wasn't, because we really want to make sure that the core experience is good enough that you're all satisfied with it. I suspect it might be connected to basically the pathfinding specifically, because like motorcycles are much more complex than cars, just because of their like size and the way how they are handled. Because like, you know, motorcycle can drive like between cars, can drive between people and so on. So I think like doing a NPCs, you know, driving motorcycles much more complex. So I suspect that might be that might be the reason.
What the fuck?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, lead quest designer Paweł Sasko commented on a variety of topics, including ongoing issues with perks, why no official information on DLC is forthcoming, and he provided further evidence of the ongoing pierogi conspiracy in Night City.
Like, I am fairly aware about like some issues with the perks because I was actually helping our gameplay RPG team when we were like looking into that topic, so I know a bit about it, and I know that that was a focus of attention, and a lot of them have been changed or fixed, and if some haven't been, it will be probably addressed at some point in the future, but again, you know, I'm not a gameplay designer, so I really cannot tell you much more regarding this. I can definitely tell you that there was a point of interest for us. Regarding why you don't know exactly what you are getting, the problem with that is that we would, to really like answer this question the best, we would have to like exactly give you all the dates and all the information of when, what will land when. And you know, I think one of the things that the release of Cyberpunk has taught us is the fact that, you know, if we will just commit to the date but not to the quality, it is not the best result, right? Like we have seen that already in the past. You know, it's best really like when we have time and we can actually, you know, focus on it and make sure that we'll deliver you the best possible quality. And because of that, those dates and things might be moving a lot, and that's really one of the reasons why we cannot like right away give you all the dates and so on. Also, like some things are not really easy to I would say to estimate, you know, to just like give you a full answer. Okay, this is the reason, this is the plan, this is the date, and so on. Like some things, you know, will turn out to be much easier, and some will turn out to be much harder than when we expected. And that's really, I think really that's the most elaborate answer I could give you. Like I think that, at least in my own perspective, right, speaking about myself, like I wouldn't want to disappoint you. right? As a players, I wouldn't want to. And the thing is that if we all like fall into like promising you more and like giving you more and like explaining and like giving you all the dates and so on, we may disappoint you even not trying, even really trying our best and so on, right? So that's why we as you can see, of course, our approach is like just to come to you with the things that are done. When you get the patch, it's a package of things that are already functional. You can get it, you can download it, it works. And we are doing our best to make sure that all the changes, all the patches you're getting are really well tested and everything is, prepared for the players who both are starting the game from the beginning and the players that are starting the game completely, who are actually continuing to play from the point that they've been so let's say you were close to the point of no return, or you were in the middle of Badlands somewhere and so on. So as I mentioned in a few other streams as well, like preparing the patches for you for the players who are in the middle of the game and for the players who are actually just starting is a bit different feat. It's a different challenge because we need to make sure that it works all the ways. Kazuliski asked, does V has a favorite type of pierogi? I honestly don't know. Maybe our story team would. I don't know.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, for the first time, someone at CDPR has publicly commented on the conduct of the community team, the individuals responsible for such content, as what you currently see on screen. Paweł Sasko would take a diplomatic approach to address the question. On the problems with holocalls, Paweł implied that CDPR are currently looking into it. Unfortunately, it seems that Paweł is not on Team Siri, confirming what Adam Badowski allegedly said in 2018. CDPR don't want to do any crossovers. One of the reasons cited is that having Witcher references would break immersion in Cyberpunk 2077, and yet there are multiple cameos and references to other games in Night City. For example, Hideo Kojima and Death Stranding, as well as irrelevant influencers.
What in the fuck?
I'd like to ask about the promises that were supposed to increase the hype before the premiere. A full living city, life paths that determine your future. Sometimes not all promises are fulfilled. People complain about the lack of them instead of looking at the pros and cons of the game. Do you think such a promotion based on great promises is good? I would really love to be able to give you like a, how to say it, more educated opinion about the topic. But I mean, as I mentioned, I'm not really a PR guy, right? So it's for me kind of difficult, I would say, to judge, what is the best way, because I'm the guy who's making the game. Not, like I would say, crafting our PR strategy and whatnot. So I honestly don't know, it's just like one thing that I know is like, and I just wanted to mention this because I think it's important in general to talk about it. Is like, guys, when you're working in a big team and so on, when there is a lot of people with different with different specialities and so on, it's really important that you have this mutual trust between disciplines, right? It's very important that there is mutual, I would say, respect and trust between different disciplines. So what's important here is the fact that me as a quest designer, I am basically trusting in the decisions of our PR team, marketing team, and whoever else has been making that decisions. And I think it's important to highlight because it's not that our, I would say, PR or marketing, department is coming to me and telling me, how quests should be built for the game, right? They're not. And that's why I do not really feel that I'm qualified to come to them and tell them how they should, what should be better or, regarding, I would say, the marketing of the game and so on. And I think it's really important, for I think for us all to understand, that if you're like in a big team and so on, when there's like so many different like specialities working together, you just need to have trust for each other. And sure, like even when somebody fails, somebody under-delivers and so on, you still have to have this trust in another person and on another members in your team, because otherwise you cannot really perform well. You cannot really like work with like, I would say, this open, free mindset and trying to approach the world and see what the world has to can give you, what the world can offer, right? Like living in fear that somebody else will screw up or somebody else will do something wrong I think it's just a wrong way to live in general. And forgive me that I went into this philosophic discussion right now, but what I wanted to say is just like, I think it's not for me to judge, honestly. Like if you would ask me about the quest design, I can talk to you about this, and the story design and so on. But when it comes to the pure marketing decisions, I suspect that people that make this decision have, years more of experience and knowledge on that field than me. So I'm just, I'm willing to give them my trust and just like show them that, okay, guys, I can give you my opinion. I would say I'm talking right now like in a real scenario in work, right? When we are like working together and so on, I can basically offer, hey, I can discuss things with our PR team or marketing and so on, offer what I think, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, and I'm going to trust them, right? As a creators, we need to be very careful to make sure that the world that we are creating is like true to itself, is like true to its core, but it's also not full of references and so on, right? Situation when we would like place the Ciri in Cyberpunk world, like alive, I'm talking about the live character, that would mean, technically speaking, that Cyberpunk world and the Witcher world are parallel universes, right? This is what it would mean, right? So making like a reckless decision, I would say, to place Ciri suddenly in Cyberpunk, we would have created this kind of I would say situation or setup that maybe is not something that we really want, and that's why I'm pointing it out. Like as a creator, you always have to ask yourself, okay, what is true to my creation? And make sure that you're like true to yourself and telling the original story rather than retelling something that already somebody else has done. And like referencing even our own game, even Witcher, is not always so good, because we want the player to be immersed in the world and to believe in the Cyberpunk world that they are seeing. And sure, we can discuss, all the things that you guys, pointed out that you don't like regarding, breaking immersion and so on. And this is fair criticism, right? But what I'm trying to say is like adding, theory on top of it and creating yet another, I would say, immersion breaker, or a situation when we would have to accept that suddenly Cyberpunk and the Witcher worlds are a parallel universes, suddenly becomes strange, and just it makes you as a player, it makes you ask questions. Okay, what actually is really going on here? Like, why they, instead of telling the original story and being true to their vision, they're actually just fucking around with like references constantly, and I would say that is my perspective. Like we had lots of different talks in the studio, in the design team, in quest team, cinematic team, and story team, specifically story team, regarding what is allowed, I would say, and what is not, because I think as a creator you need to be very conscious about all those decisions. I think being reckless about this is not a good direction. Is really I would say the exact opposite you should be doing. There's a question: why can't we refuse phone calls? It would be better get a pop-up in the corner which can be ignored, and you should also be able to get in while driving. Very good point. Actually, we had like lots of different conversations in the team and in general in the studio regarding how the phone calls should be handled, because as you probably can understand, like in The Witcher we didn't really have phone calls before, so we couldn't really how to say it, we didn't have like a big enough polygon to really like test all the, you know, all the ideas and so on, and basically see, you know, what works good, what doesn't. And again, like we are also seeing that there's lots of like space for improvement when it comes to the when it comes to the phone calls, you know, how they are handled, how we respond to them, and so on, you know. So I find your comment very accurate. That's something also that in the quest team specifically we have been talking quite a bit about.
Oh, fuck a dog doll.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, it appears that the CDPR corpos might be making a move soon with a big update. Some advertising for this alleged update has been shown, which might coincide with WitcherCon being held this week. Best to keep expectations low and remember to keep on chipping in.
What the fuck?
CDPR corpos have revealed that the new Cyberpunk 2077 adverts showing the statement, "the biggest update yet," is actually referring to patch 1.2 and the return of the game to the PlayStation Store.
Look at me. See this? This is a look of unfucking surprise on my face.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Pavel Sasko revealed that there are many hidden secrets in the game, which he believes players have not uncovered yet. I'm passionate about Cyberpunk 2077 and have around 1,500 hours on this game. I also data mine the game files, and I'm not entirely convinced by CDPR's approach. There are indeed many minor secrets, but unfortunately they are not worth making videos on because my viewers want funny, preem, informative, or waifu content.
For instance, like, I don't know how many of you basically check the columbarium, right? In different places in the story, you know what happens and so on. And yet, there's like a bunch of things that I think nobody yet found. Or at least I didn't yet see any Reddit threads or YouTube videos about it. Because that's the thing, like, the game is built with assumption that you will like have fun with it, experience, you know, have built like a, I would say, interact with the community around the game and just like find out. For instance, the Nibbles, right? The cat. So Nibbles was implemented by me, right? I hidden him in a way to make sure that there's nothing in the game that tells you that this cat is there, aside of just one thing. I just kept the shard hidden in a trash bin for you to find it. Because I wanted like some player by accident figure it out and then share it maybe on Reddit or on YouTube. And then I wanted this to spread all around the community so that people will know how to actually adopt the cat, you know, for their apartment. And you know, there are things like this in the game, but they require basically just some of you to find it and then share it. And so on. And that's why I was like giving an examples before when we talked about like some things in The Witcher that have been discovered like, for, let's say 5 years after the game was released.
Oh shit!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, a netrunner claims to have found references to upcoming free DLC within the source code previously stolen from the CDPR corpus.
Come on, seriously?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Pavel Sasko explained that wall running was removed from the game because after testing, the mechanic failed to work with the game environments. One of the reasons why wall running is a contentious issue is because it was presented during the 2018 gameplay demos, but CDPR would subsequently fail to communicate why the feature was removed via official channels. Pavo confirmed CDPR are aware of the issues with water physics and are working to fix it. There is a debate on whether CDPR are right to remain silent on updates and DLC. Remember that Pavo is acting on his own, so remove him from the equation, and CDPR have provided almost nothing of value via official channels. On the question of a Goro Takamura romance, Pavo confirmed CDPR considered it, but ultimately it did not fit their vision of the game. Finally, there is an update on DLC.
Thing is, like, if you're looking at other games that had their rocky launches, right? Like, I mean, the super famous examples are, of course, you know, the No Man's Sky, and games like that, right? They did go radio silent for most of the time, right? I don't want to like bring up any other examples, but I'm just like mentioning this, right? So, in a way, the history of game development, I would say, shows us plenty of, I would say, proof or maybe examples from the past that was the way that a lot of the creators decided to tackle that kind of problem. Thing is that we haven't been in situation like this before, right? And for me, it's very hard to decide or very hard to say to you, is it better like this or not? Me personally, so as a Paweł Sasko, I would probably preferred to be a bit more transparent. But the thing is, I'm not the marketing guy or PR guy, right? I do not make calls about those things, and I don't have most amount of knowledge regarding those topics, right? So I just cannot really, like, people in the studio that are making those calls are way more knowledgeable on that sphere, and I'm just willing to trust them. So if that was the decision to go. I think then it was the right one. Wall running. Well, so I can talk about that a bit more. So let's look at the surroundings actually here. Do you see what location we're at? Now, imagine when you in the game will have to add wall running. Let's think about any other examples of the games that actually have wall running right now. Now, what is the specific of that kind of games? Well, the walls are mostly very, very clean. There's literally nothing on those walls, right? And that makes, well, unfortunately, some of those spots looking incredibly artificial. And that's, on top of that, it's actually very, very limited for the art itself. And, you know, like, you can guys maybe poke Miles about it because he probably is way more knowledgeable to speak about the topic, but just imagine, like, when you're having actually wall running in your game, it basically really dramatically limits your... Holy shit, that laser, guys! They're really trying to own my ass. And imagine, you know, how limiting that is every time when you have to, like, think about the location when you're building it, and every time when you're... Jesus, they are really packing a punch. Every time when you're trying to, like, add a air conditioner or, you know, any kind of a unit on the wall, you know, or even anything really that has a mesh form. So, wow, that was harsh. That was harsh. But you know what? I mean, first death out of the way, now it's gonna be only better. So imagine a situation when you actually have to, every time when you're doing that, approach this and basically every time remove everything that is on the walls in Cyberpunk game and just make sure that the wall running is working. Can you imagine how stripping and limiting it would be for the artists? Just ask yourself this kind of question, because that's basically the actual, like, a real problem that we have encountered when building it, right? Like, when you're doing this, right, and you start building it and so on, you start asking yourself all those questions. And you're like, actually, you know, this is impacting, you know, the art of the game quite a bit more than actually you would want as a creator. And then, you know, the other, of course, you know, question is, okay, so, because I sometimes tend to say that, you know, game development is more like a barter, right? So you need to give something to get something, right? Wow. Holy shit, they just hatched me. Okay, guys, we need to change the strategy. And I think the strategy that we need to change is I need to speak a bit less and focus a bit more on playing. So imagine basically just how limiting that is for the game when you have to add this kind of a mechanics to the game. And then, you know, imagine, you know, basically how the city would look like. Just look at the loading screen that we have right now, right? Look at those balconies. Imagine that this is a spot where you have any kind of combat. Now, what happens? Well, actually, it turns out that I need to come to Miles every time and tell him, hey, Miles, unfortunately, you know, your fantastic location, well, we need to remove some of those balconies because, you know, the combat doesn't work well enough. And no, of course, Miles, looking at it, he thinks probably the same. And this becomes really problematic, you know, for a game that has open structure, similarly to the Cyberpunk game. So that is a really high cost that you as a game developer need to take for having these mechanics in the game. And then, always the question is, okay, am I willing actually to take that cost? Am I really willing to take that cost, as a creator, and really just have simply, worse looking locations, worse looking art, while, in fact, it does not really bring that much, holy shit. It does not bring that much to the table, right? Anyhow, this is what I wanted to say regarding this specific topic now. So, guys, regarding the water physics, I mean, one thing I wanted to mention, because I saw this question like popping up multiple times on the stream, is that we are definitely know about the issue. We're also not happy with the way it currently works. Okay, and I'll just leave it at that. So I can talk maybe a bit more about the Takemura regarding behind-the-scenes story, and then I'm going back to playing. So guys, the important thing regarding the Takemura is that from very beginning we sort of knew what kind of character we wanted to build, and he was supposed to take a role of this of Ronin, a samurai that lost his master. And on the stream when Philip was with me, we were talking quite a bit about who Takemura is and how he came to be. And it's an interesting thing because like the questions regarding should Takemura actually have his own romance or not have been asked very, very early inside our team. And I'm not talking about the Quest team here, but actually at this point it was even our QA. So our quality assurance, our testers have been asking us, hey, don't you feel that there should be a romance with him? And we had like a bunch of discussions regarding like, hey, how that could be tackled, would that be right? How it would feel? And then, throughout like many, discussions, we reached a conclusion that it really wouldn't feel right for him as a character, for his role in the game.
You known Pan Am for long?
Because we were worried that it will basically just make him look really weird and strange, especially for some combinations of players. Because not everybody is really a fan of Takemura in terms of like how they like him. For some people he still is, for some players, he still is a servant of Saburo in a way. And even though a lot of things has changed in his past and so on, he might be interesting as a love interest, I would say. Like very early, as a designers, we realized that we are not seeing the way how the Cyberpunk story is designed. We are not seeing a good moment or spot for him to develop that further, and that was basically our take on it. What about the female smasher romance DLC? This one link as well.
Okay, we'll pick this up later.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Philippe Weber provided some clarification on the comments that Pavel Sasko made on the Takemura romance. Takemura was created quite late in development, and there was not a lot of time or budget left to include full scenes for a romance or produce something of quality. However, on a creative level, Weber believes a Takemura romance would fit, hence why there are hints in the game. In other developments, Maximum Mike came out of hiding to confirm he is working on DL.
That is not funny.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, a few months ago I was going through the game files and found a mysterious announcement video. A video, as far as I'm aware, that does not appear within the game itself. What I find interesting about this video is that it contains references to Night City, but also has info linking to websites on the real net. In addition, there are questionable images present if you go through the video frame by frame, which seem out of place to the rest of the game. Why would there be references to Coca-Cola in Cyberpunk 2077? Is this part of an ongoing CDPR corpo conspiracy? Did a rogue Netrunner at CDPR leave this within the game for someone to find? If you discover something noteworthy, let me know. Retro Carter says the clip reminds him of a refused music video. Running Wolf 1980 translated the phrase as a maniac that will rise to power is coming to Night City, while Steven Talarovsky has found a link to a website, but we do not have the full address. The truth is out there.
We
We know who you are. We know what you are. We know what you want. You are playing with fire. Don't dare cross the line.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, there have been new developments in the ongoing CDPR Corpo conspiracy involving a hidden video within the game. Ganna mentioned that some images are from Hardcore Henry, a movie where a Russian laboratory brings people back as half human, half robotic hybrids. Or in Cyberpunk lingo, they are packing cyberware. I watched the movie and confirmed these images are a match. The image of a dead body near the Coca-Cola stand is Joseph Rosen, a candy shop owner from Brooklyn who was murdered in 1936. Derek Cole commented that the video reminds him of the infamous Hong Kong 97, an unlicensed game for the SNES that used images of real dead bodies, which also happens to feature Coca-Cola. Romulus, a netrunner with street cred amongst data miners and modders, implied that the video is a work in progress from an unfinished side quest, and if the quest is DLC, it will be spicy. Data miners have more details on this potential quest, so this is a spoiler.
Oh, fuck.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Corpos have revealed details on patch 1.3. Changes include an update to the minimap system, which will allow thee to navigate Night City better, and some additional minor changes such as resetting perk points. Furthermore, there will be a CDPR Twitch stream to showcase patch 1.3 on August 17th. I will leave a link to the patch notes, which is lore heavy and contains some listed videos in the comments section. Thank you for chipping.
Fuck!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Corpos revealed 3 DLCs, an alternative appearance for Johnny Silverhand, a new car, the Archer Quartz Bandit, and some new jackets for V. I suspect many tombs will find these updates underwhelming. If the Corpos wish to focus on appearance for DLC, why not bring back the option for the original FemV? Give fans something exciting to talk about. There are a myriad of minor improvements and bug fixes. Most notable in my opinion is that optical camo cyberware will now be available for purchase from Ripperdocs, which will have a significant impact for those wanting to create a Motoko Kusanagi style build. I will leave a link to the full patch notes in the comment section and to the video where I previously covered optical camo cyberware.
Fucking pathetic.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Netrunner Romulus is back with data mined details on a potential expansion and some evidence of work on a multiplayer component. Examining the executable file with a hex editor revealed the existence of episodes 1 and 2. On the topic of multiplayer or some sort of online mode for the game, original plans apparently were scrapped. However, Romulus uncovered that legacy files for an online component seem to have been updated. Returning from a brief hiatus, Pavel Sasko commented that there is indeed some sort of secret associated with the message FF06B5 that can be found in various places in Night City. Several netrunners, including Retro Carter, are currently investigating this.
Pavel, it means a lot for the FF06B5 community if you could clarify, you think it's currently solvable, or do we have to wait for some DLC first? Thanks. I mean, the thing is, if I will tell you, I will pretty much solve it for you, right? So I cannot, really. And besides, like, you know, it's all about you guys trying to outsmart us, I would say, right? Is it? I guess so, in a way. Like, so it's definitely something. But, you know, what it is and where is it and how to get there, and, you know, I'm sure you guys will uncover this. You know, honestly, if I would know that people will be digging so deep in, like, Witcher, we would have left way more stuff there. So, you know, and still, it took people so much time to, you know, to find it. Holy...
The console version of Cyberpunk 2077 did not meet the quality standard we wanted it to meet. I and the entire leadership team are deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up to that.
And this is sincere. This is from the heart. I know a lot of people were disappointed with this game. Like, I really do. Like, I know a lot of us were disappointed with this game, and I really appreciate those of you who have stuck with us, who believe in this project, who believe in this game, who believe in this world. Like, sincerely, when I see you guys posting your fan art or your screenshots or talking about the characters that affected you, it's wonderful. It really, really, really makes it worth it, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You should demand a fully functional, well-done game, and that's your right. The thing what I'm talking about is more of an acknowledgement, you know. That was a very difficult game to make, a very ambitious one. And we have tried to pull off as much as we could on all the fronts. And I think that a lot of them we have done it, and a lot of them we still need to improve. And I think that you will see it, you are already seeing it in the patches that we are moving towards the direction and improving.
Goodbye, V. And never stop fighting.
No, I'm not sucking anyone's dick just so they can fuck me in the ass!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR corpos unsurprisingly were elusive in providing any updates on the game, other than saying that the target for the next-gen version is late 2021. A similar date was given for the next-gen version of The Witcher 3. In terms of The Witcher, the success of the Netflix series resulted in sales of the game skyrocketing last December, and CDPR have already confirmed Netflix-inspired DLC for the game. In my opinion, CDPR will therefore attempt to capitalize on the release of Season 2, which comes out on December 17th. In terms of speculation, I'm not using my inside sources on this one. It seems reasonable to anticipate a December release date for the next-gen version of the games, so marketing efforts can be combined with Netflix.
In terms of support, work on Cyberpunk will continue for as long as it's necessary. Our ultimate goal is to deliver on the promise we gave to gamers and regain their trust. We are fully committed to ensuring that Cyberpunk lives up to its full potential and becomes a long-term success. At the same time, we are focused on development of the next-gen version of the game. Our target date for the release of the next-gen update is late 2021. Please note, however, that as the game is still in development, production plans might be subject to change. The next-gen version is an important step on our adventure in the Cyberpunk universe. As I said before, we strongly believe in the long-term potential of this IP. That's why we are currently working on the first expansion for the game, although I cannot say anything more about it at this point in time. Right now, 160 people are working on the first expansions for Cyberpunk, while nearly 70 more are involved in other unannounced projects.
Well, that's fucking helpful.
In a recent interview with Gospoda RPG, Mike Pondsmith, aka Maximum Mike, was asked about Morgan Blackhand, and why did the NC legend not appear in Cyberpunk 2077.
We have a deal, which is that Morgan right now, is a legendary person.
Yeah.
And that's because it would take away some of his coolness if he was like somebody you knew. Nobody wants to, be sitting there in some, cyber old age home and going, hi, what's your name? I was Morgan Blackhand. Of course, I've lost the hand. And then the other one, nice hook though. Kind of like, you don't want to think about old Morgan. Yeah. And you don't want to have sad stories. You want, kind of like the Lone Ranger, you don't really want to hang out with the Lone Ranger that much. You want him to be out there laying down silver bullets and and yelling "Hi-Yo Silver." So Morgan is a mystery character, much in the same way as you may have noticed, there is no character model for me. You know, I exist as Max Mike, and I am a DJ, which works for me because I was a DJ. So that is on purpose because certain characters, we believe, are better being in a mythical level.
Is Mike telling the truth or being evasive? It is not for me to comment on that, but Netrunner Romulus, who has repeatedly done excellent work covering Cyberpunk 2077, has found hints within the game of unused content involving Blackhand, including a meeting with Johnny Rogan Thompson. It is important to stress though that content changes during development, but somewhere at CDPR HQ, the corpos are hiding info on Morgan Blackhand. There is a theory that Morgan is associated with Mr. Blue Eyes.
So I've heard, but I'd like it proved to me as well.
Mainly because of assets using the Blackhand name for Blue Eyes. However, Romulus also points out that the assets use the name Paul Knight. In case you are not aware, Alt Cunningham explains why Morgan Blackhand did not appear in Silverhand's memories.
Your death wasn't Johnny's fault.
How could you know?
Seen you in his memories. It was an accident.
What you saw was his subjective view of what happened. A warped account of events he locked away in his subconscious and replayed time and again. It bears no resemblance to the truth.
Finally, I've covered this lore previously, but in case you missed it, Mike confirmed that Adam Smasher actually dated Michiko Arasaka.
He dated Michiko Arasaka. What was going on there that she would even go?
We know who you are. We know what you are. We know what you want. You are playing with fire. Don't dare cross the line.
Let's do it. What in the fuck?
In recent Cyberpunk 2077 news,
Of course. Fuck!
Adam Kaczynski stated that CDPR's goal was to deliver on the promises they made and regain player trust. A similar question was put to Pavel Sasko.
He said multiple times that CDPR will continue to work on Cyberpunk not for military reasons, but to regain players' trust. What does this mean to you? Really cool question. You know? Like, one thing that happened, when the game was released and so on, a lot of people started playing the game and so on, partially because they trusted us. After they played The Witcher 3, they knew basically what kind of games we're making, and even though we were showing and saying that Cyberpunk is a completely different game, done differently and so on, but even then, there were certain qualities that we wanted to have and perceive in our games, and I think that to regain players' trust is really go back to these qualities and make sure that we are always delivering on those qualities. That this is what it means to me. I really love doing this, and yeah, I just want the players to know that when they're buying our game, those certain qualities of our games are always there. This is what it means to me, and this is what specifically I want to do on my site, as much as I can.
In my opinion, if CDPR wanted to salvage 2021 and build momentum moving into 2022, they should go all in when the Witcher Netflix series is released, during the last 2 weeks of December. So here is my question for you. How do you think CDPR should regain your trust during this period? Suggest one change or DLC you would like to see. Remember, DLC is minor, usually cosmetic or in the form of new items. The main content will be coming via expansions. Various devs watch these videos and read the comments, so give it some thought and you never know. My personal picks are the option to make the original FemV. Secondly, released the full version of the samurai song, Archangel. And remember to keep on
Dog shit, cat shit, rat shit.
Staring sometimes at Panam's ass. You know, there's, as I said, you know, as a player, there's a lot of different things for anybody, so for everyone, you know. So
in the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Polish media outlet Spider's Web have been publishing a series of interesting articles on CDPR. They claimed that in late 2019, an internal demo showing the game's structure and mechanics was revealed. The demo was described as shockingly bad. Apparently, it was so bad that the result was not disclosed to the whole company. Outsourcing companies declared it was the worst build they had ever worked on. In April, the game received several silent reviews by journalists from Western media. The article alleges that these journalists said that if the game is released in September 2020, it will only score 60% in reviews. It is implied that if the game was postponed to April 2021, with the most severe problems being dealt with, and with the addition of new mechanics, the game could average over 90%. This was for PC only. The article quotes an interview that Marcin Iwiński gave in 2016, during Przystanek Woodstock, where he says that at CDPR they have a motto: no one remembers unfinished games released on time. People want to buy a finished product. It's as if I went to see Star Wars at the cinema, and the X-Wings were uncolored because they didn't make the deadline.
I mamy takie powiedzenie w firmie, zresztą ono jest powiedzeniem branżowym: nikt nie pamięta niedokończonych gier wydanych na czas. Ludzi to nie interesuje, tak? Ja chcę kupić gotowy produkt. To mniej więcej tak, jakbym poszedł do kina na Gwiezdne Wojny, tak? A statki kosmiczne nie byłyby pokolorowane, bo się nie wyrobili, tak? Ja bym powiedział: cholera, co to za popelina. Ja uważam, że to jest złe. I uważam, że marka konkretnej gry, o której wspomniałeś, bardzo na tym ucierpi, tak?
Marcin would describe it as rubbish, and no doubt the brand would suffer a lot.
Żeby nie powiedzieć za mocno, ale nie liczenie się chyba z odbiorcą PC-towym, tak? Bo ta gra na konsolę była dokończona.
Tak.
Jaka powinna być decyzja, jaką ja bym podjął? Ja bym pewnie wydał tą grę na konsolę, a na PC bym powiedział: ok, musimy poczekać, dopieszczamy grę i dodajemy bardzo dużo dodatkowego kontentu, tak? Oczywiście będąc w takiej sytuacji, bo to należałoby się cofnąć w czasie pewnie ze 2 lata, inaczej to zaplanować, tak? Żeby ta gra PC-towa była dokończona, ale nie moja gra, nie moja decyzja.
Marcin was asked about Batman Arkham Knight, which was released in 2015, then pulled off Steam due to significant technical problems and performance issues. While it was okay on console, his response was, "The games you release should be finished, because that's what the gamer pays for." And Marcin also said he would have released the game on console, but delayed the game for PC until it was ready.
Gry powinny być wydawane skończone, bo za to płaci gracz.
The article reports that the cyber attack, which happened in early 2021, was a result of employees working on resources outside of the company, making them significantly more vulnerable. However, the main issue was not the game data leaks, but HR data and salaries. This makes poaching top-tier talent from CDPR a lot easier. A former CDPR employee is alleged to have said, "A CDPR are the most silver-tongued son of a bee in gaming. Their damage control is such that over the years to come, they will start releasing free add-ons to fix Cyberpunk 20.
Of course! Fuck!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR corpos have released patch 1.31, which contains various minor fixes. I will provide a link to the patch notes in the comments section.
Give me a fucking break.
If you just look at the versions that we had, the game changed dramatically. It's like 3 different, 4 different, 5 different games, depending on how many iterations we actually went through, which I'm not quite sure how many there were, but...
I feel the same way. I mean, I was telling some people who are sort of new to the project, we're launching soon, and I was just regaling them with all the previous versions of the game that we had done and telling them, oh, this happened and we did this and you're supposed to be able to do this, going back 8 years now. So there's a lot to talk about. I go back and I look at some of our early demos and you can definitely see, you can see the skeleton of what's going to be in there, but all the details change. And it's exciting to see. We've got some people who haven't been on the project very long, and like I said before, I've been talking to them about what the project used to be like, and yeah, sometimes they're very surprised to see the old footage. So yeah, it's pretty different.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, Paweł Sasko revealed that the Militech Basilisk was deliberately designed to accommodate the and Pan Am, in terms of talking with Pan Am and to provide enough room to bang.
Right? We have iterated Panzer so much because we wanted to make the V sit together with Pan Am, but in the same time our artists, led by Paweł Mielniczuk and Bill Daly, those two guys, they really wanted to make the interior of Panzer asymmetrical, so that it doesn't you're not next to Pan Am basically, who's next to you and that's it, but actually she's like sort of a on a side, slightly in the front of you, also because it's nicer to look at her. Look, it's much nicer, much easier for me as a player to look at her like this rather than just looking completely on the side, right? It's more natural, and because of that, because of the fact that it works better also for the scenes, we decided to do it like this. And there was quite a bit of iteration. I remember the moment when we had discussions regarding the sex in the Panzer, and literally the discussion was about, hey, there's not enough space, there's not enough space for them to bang correctly. Holy fuck, what happens here?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 and Witcher news, CDPR revealed that the next-gen version of both games will be postponed until 2022.
Fuck-a-doodle-doo. The shit just hit the fan, didn't it? Let's get this over with, shall we? Make your wishes.
I definitely put their Blizzard. I definitely put their Rockstar. And I think I would have to put them at number one, and probably Bethesda as well. So we want to get there. One will have to go.
Very well. It was a mistake to come.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Quest Director Paweł Sasko and acting lead Quest designer Philippe Weber revealed a myriad of interesting details about the design of the game, including a possible hint of upcoming content. Concerning romances, some still hold the misconception, based on data-mined audio files or mods, that a female Pan Am romance and Judy male romance was cut from the game. That was not the case. It is easier for voice actors to record all permutations of dialogue during their sessions, rather than asking the actor to come back in to record lines again. The phrase "cut content" is used in a malicious manner, when the reality is certain mechanics or content did not fit the vision for the final version of the game, or was replaced with something that CDPR thought would be better.
The production reality is that for simplicity, we record everything. Because you as a player, you can be a male or a female with a male or female voice. What we do, we actually record, in most cases, all the variants. That's why sometimes you find in the game lines that are not used. But female V and Pan Am were never supposed to have a romance. I actually think because Philip, who's with us, Philip, you were actually one of the key people at the beginning, helping out with Nomad's storyline, right? And I remember.
Yeah, so I started the design process and did the first versions of the quests that we basically called Pan Am Romance.
Yeah.
But then, let's say, the team in Krakow actually took that over and, of course, did then the final versions of these quests, while I moved on to our buddy Takemura here.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's important to emphasize here because like when you guys are doing like data mining, whatever, you're sometimes finding things, and I see it like very often misinterpreted, saying like, "Hey, this was cut from the game." Like our design, and I was speaking about it many times, was that Judy will be always a homosexual romance, and Panam will be always a heterosexual romance, and there was never a version that those things were in any form in the game. The fact that the voice lines are there, it's because we always record all the variants, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand it, because like when you have a game as massive as Cyberpunk, and you have on top of that, I think, Philip, we have 10 languages, right, that we have recorded? I think 10 languages, right? Have the VO versions.
Yeah, or like, even 11?
Or 11, could be. And imagine, guys, that you take all the lines times 11, and in all those countries, you know, where you have to like schedule hundreds of actors per each language, it becomes incredibly complex. That's why, and it's a normal thing in the industry. It's not a thing that we kinda do. It's pretty much a normal thing in the industry. You very often record way more than you will actually need, just to be sure that you don't miss anything. That's why you sometimes may find stuff that looks like a leftovers, but it's not really. It's just, it was recorded basically from the start, not to be used really, like, because it's much easier to manage as a process. And I get it that it's maybe a bit difficult for you to like understand and imagine it, but just like imagine the numbers, right? The whole game times 11 times 300 actors in each language. Imagine how complicated it is, and then, you know, stretched in like few years time, right? It is really complex process.
Last time I was here, I was with Carrie. This Latino hunk gave us a lap dance. Cheeks so smooth, I could almost see my own reflection.
I thought you preferred girls.
Mostly. Now and then I swung both ways. The more the merrier.
On the question of when the full version of Samurai song Archangel will be released, Philippe said the full version sounds awesome.
Archangel full version when? Grillowana Kielbasa? I have no idea, to be completely honest with you.
I can only say that the full version sounds really awesome.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks. We shouldn't do it to them, you know that.
As I have been covering CDPR and Cyberpunk 2077 for years, all I can say is that when Weber drops a hint, things usually happen in Night City.
Hey people, this is Maximum Mike, the voice of Night City. This one's gonna bring back some memories, people. It's Johnny Silverhand, bring you Archangel. Coming right at you from the dark past, Johnny Silverhand and one of his biggest and most thoughtful hits, Archangel. Sort of makes you think, yeah, that was Johnny Silverhand playing his big hit, Archangel.
On the topic of the Siri cameo and fan service, Weber explained one of the reasons why CDPR opted not to do it was the potential difficulty of mixing Andrzej Sapkowski's universe with Mike Pondsmith's and the repercussions for the lore. The current references are deliberately vague, so that while Witcher fans can make the connections, it does not break immersion. While it is a sound position to have, in contrast, there are several references and cameos in the game which are perceived as immersion breaking, add nothing of value to proceedings, and to put it mildly, feel like misconceived marketing decisions.
If we really would have Ciri now appear in Cyberpunk as a character, we would also just kind of mix Andrzej Sapkowski's Witcher universe with Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk universe. And, you know, in a way, that would also be, I don't know, for me, myself, feeling a little self-serious, like, you know, oh yeah, they're connected. And, you know, then we would kind of, I know, of course, you know, this is not as important, but in a way, it would also feel like we're making it canon now that they're connected. And in a way, you know, we also kind of respect those things in a way that maybe we don't want to go that far. But let's say, you know, little references like, you know, a certain magazine with Ciri on the cover appeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, you know, Witcher jackets. I think such like that is always cool. Or when Ciri talks about, you know, seeing a world where people wage war from far away and have like metal ships. of course, if you know that it's about Cyberpunk, that kind of works. But in the context of Witcher Wild Hunt, if you wouldn't know about Cyberpunk, it can still be something that's immersive. And I think that's this kind of balance that we usually try to do. But I wouldn't say I'm the authority on that. That's my personal opinion. So if any day we would do that, probably, there would have to be a really good reason.
I feel really like the same. Like I really think like on the streams I was talking many times about like guys, something that I call like responsibility of a designer. Like you as a designer, you have a responsibility for your fan base, audience, however you call them, for the players, to build it in a way that it makes sense, right? And the things that Philip just gave you, those are like implications that you do not always want to give, and you just want to like, I think, balance, carefully between, like those being self-referential and really like keeping the world intact, believable, and immersive. And you can just actually make a disservice to yourself and to your own game if you are doing things like that and building like that.
Concerning Meredith Stout, Weber confirmed that when breaking into the Arasaka Industrial Park, having Stout help you was considered. Even though it was a cool idea, ultimately it was decided there were already too many options to include a Militech angle.
If there were any considerations to involve a Militech angle for the Arasaka Industrial Park infiltration. Without revealing too much, I considered it once that as an example, if Meredith Stout was alive, that she can help you there.
Yeah,
that was one of these cases where we just had so many moving parts already that we basically had to choose, what we can do and what we can't. So even though this is a really cool idea, we couldn't do it in this case.
Yeah. It's just like budget understood as a time of people involved just didn't allow it. And as a designer, you very often actually face stuff like that.
In terms of Cyberpunk 2077 coverage, it's been quiet as CDPR have shifted their focus to 2022. During a recent visit to Poland, I saw a few exciting things which I cannot talk about, but when the time comes, I will naturally go all in again.
Not another word.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, in an interview with Polish website Rzeczpospolita, CD Projekt president Adam Kaczynski reiterated that Cyberpunk 2077 will not receive any additional updates in 2021. But the next-gen version will be released in the first quarter of 2022 alongside a very large update, patch 1.5. It's interesting the article refers to patch 1.5 as the game is currently on version 1.31, suggesting CDPR have skipped 1.4 to bring something with more substance in 1.5. The next gen version is a potential opportunity for CDPR to earn some street cred. In other news, it appears that due to a sale on Steam, Cyberpunk 2077 is now receiving more positive reviews from actual players. The discourse on CDPR and Cyberpunk 2077 is dominated by a handful of hate merchants, meaning coverage on 2077 is heavily skewed towards lies, toxicity, and misinformation. The majority of gamers who actually played the game enjoyed their experience in Night City and want more content. Speaking of content you might not have seen, just a reminder that I restored and fixed all the episodes of Safe and Sound, including music and audio. So send some love to Sergeant Dobbs and Mr. Puggins. And remember to keep on.
Can we fix it? Right the hell now!
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CD Projekt Corpus explained why the next update will be patch 1.5 instead of 1.4.
It's a big update, so we wanted to stress it with round number. And it's hard to say that we are skipping, but that's true. We are not releasing any updates before next-gen edition to pack the whole batch of improvements in one big update to support the impact on next-gen edition.
CDPR also confirmed that plans for multiplayer elements for both their IPs, Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher, is still ongoing.
The plan remains the same. So we are planning to add multiplayer functionalities in the future to both franchises, including Cyberpunk, gradually. So, and we are not revealing which franchise will get the first multiplayer functionalities, but the first attempt will be something we can learn from, and then we can add more and more. So step by step, we want to open our single-player experience. We want to open doors to multiplayer, but adding some multiplayer activities gradually.
The Ghost of 2077 multiplayer has been making the rounds for almost 3 years now, and given the trouble that CDPR has faced in recent times, I'm concerned that lessons have not been learned. Corpos speak about the need to regain player trust. Well, first and foremost, you need to deliver the goods in Night City. That requires focusing available resources on optimization, new content, and expansions. As requested, I've now uploaded high-quality versions of the Night City ads. Always feel free to leave suggestions for future content on the games I cover. And remember to keep on
Fuck, kill me, please.
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Corpos have opted to remain mostly silent on the first year anniversary of the game's release. More interestingly though, during an interview with The Verge promoting The Matrix Awakens, Keanu Reeves was asked whether he knew about the various Johnny Silverhand sex mods that were available before CDPR Corpos started taking action.
Do you play video games?
No.
No, really?
No.
Even Cyberpunk?
No, I mean, I've seen demonstrations, but I've never played it.
Did you know that in Cyberpunk they were hacking a character? You were the most requested hack to make a character that you could have sex with be your character.
Yes.
And it got to a point where the game developer said, no, you can't do this because we're not sure if we have permission to do this.
Oh.
But I mean, now that I have you, like, what do you think about that?
Oh my God, it's always nice when it's nice, and you know.
Yeah.
Think of how much money is important, right? So you could not even have to be there, and people could have digital sex with your digital avatar. What's it called right now for members only? You could do a whole thing. You're starting to remind me of me, 50 years back. Minus the charisma. An impressive cock.
Well played, Keanu. Finally, in case you missed it, I hit the record of 2,077 hours on Cyberpunk 2077. I might even have a ticket booked for the Crystal Palace. And remember to keep on.
Okay, we'll pick this up later.
Do you play video games?
No.
No, really?
No.
Even Cyberpunk?
No, I mean, I've seen demonstrations, but I've never played it.
Has Keanu Reeves played the game? Yes, he played the game, but as far as I know, haven't finished yet. So, but definitely he played the game and he loves it. I'll pass to Michał because Michał was recently playing the game heavily, so maybe Michał can share his own judgment and his own opinion.
There's nothing wrong with the Xbox or PS4 versions. There is no problem with the Xbox or PlayStation 4, to be honest.
What you saw was his subjective view of what happened. A warped account of events he locked away in his subconscious and replayed time and again. It bears no resemblance to the truth.
What the fuck?
In the latest Cyberpunk 2077 news, CDPR Quest Director Paweł Sasko organised an awesome stream with various guests to celebrate the first year anniversary of Cyberpunk 2077. Well worth checking out if you have the time. For me, there were 3 important points worth covering. Music director Marcin Przybylowicz revealed that the initial design for Johnny Silverhand and Samurai was very different before reviews were chosen. The full release of Samurai song Archangel was also confirmed.
And about the fact that we didn't have released the Archangel yet, I know that we have talked about it with our comms team, so regarding this I can maybe answer that part of that question, because this is something that I guess what I can say. We have a certain idea about this, what we want to do, and that I want to keep it like this, okay? Not to spoil anything for you guys. It will happen eventually at some point, somewhere in the future without any details. There is some kind of a plan. Anyway, I don't want to speak about it more. But Marcin, regarding the samurai basically, and Refused being a samurai, if you could talk to us about this, about that specific plan, about that specific, I would say, idea to, to use that band.
That choice.
Yes, that choice.
So first of all, in the beginning, we had quite something else on our minds. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say who did we pick, so I'm not gonna tell it. But basically, the idea was that it would be a version of Johnny that is more in line with what Mike Pondsmith wrote in 2020 guidebook. So basically someone who would draw so much attention that can fill up the stadium, for example, 40, 50,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. And that was our first idea to make our Johnny the same way. And then I remember Adam comes into my office and says that we are switching it to something completely different. So imagine that, for example, today, if we are today and Johnny lives today, Johnny tweets that in 2 hours he's gonna be performing in Warsaw in some obscure club that can fit 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. And 15 minutes later, after that tweet, thousands of people are occupying the entrance to the club trying to get in, right? And inside, the atmosphere is crowdy, sweaty, it smells, the water condensates from the ceiling, there's some fungi there, so it's not very clean, lots of underground feeling, basically. And then the small stage full of smoke and Johnny with the metal arm. So we would, as you can see, the perception of Johnny changed, 180 degrees, right? From some glam celebrity towards underground figure. And then PT comes all in white and says, I know a guy who just might work, right? My favorite punk band of all time, Refused.
Yeah.
And it so happens that that was also the all-time favorite band from Adam's
Exactly,
youth.
right?
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So in a way, like the stars aligned,
and the head of the studio on board to get Refused on board, you have Refused on board.
Exactly, like that was like a situation when the stars aligned, right? Like in a way, like with the story, the concept of the world, also like people tastes and stuff. That's always an interesting thing. Okay.
Miles Tost, senior level designer, revealed various concept sketches he made for the game, which indicated that work for many areas, such as rescuing Sandra Dorset from the scavengers, only began in late 2017. Congratulations to CDPR for the first year anniversary of Cyberpunk 2077, and thank you for chipping in.
Now what?
I'm gonna ask for a refund.